To Chicken in a Bag, a real-life comedy podcast designed to lighten you up, make you laugh, and get you off your ass. Now that's Kristen being Kristen. Are you freaking kidding me? Start the show!
All right, everyone. It is another episode of Chicken in the Bag podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Hutchison, also known as Kristen being Kristen. If you are somebody who is either starting to try to start a business, if you're a coach, if you're an entrepreneur, if you ever want to live a digital life and be a digital nomad, then boy, do I have the guest for you today. I'm going to be chatting with my friend Dee Greene, and he's going to share with his new endeavors and some of the ups and downs of life and business. So let's get Dee in here and get going. See. Boom. All right, Dee, what's going on?
Yo, first of all, that's the dopest intro I've seen. I was not expecting that. That's so fire. I love that.
Well, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to give everybody a little backstory about you and I. I was on your podcast, the Dee Greene podcast, right? That's how we met originally.
Right.
You were on my Instagram live last year. And you're just somebody that I love talking to because you just have a really great outlook on life, and you're always trying things, and you share the good and the bad. And that's what I love about you, because nobody likes to share the bad, right? So I just really want to bring you on. So, and a lot of people don't know, so you're a coach and an entrepreneur. So how did you get into coaching, and what made you want to get into that world? And then we're going to kind of take all the other things as we go along.
Yeah, for me, before I was doing probably what every other coach was doing before they became a coach, which is one-on-one, working with each individual person, which just takes up a ton of time, right? So as I started making more, the good thing about that is you start making more money, because you're like, oh, I have clients. So at first you don't mind it, but eventually you're like, wow, I have more money, but I don't have really a life or time to do what I want to do. So it starts to get to the point where it's not really the ideal situation, because it's the better you do, the less time that you have. So I just started thinking man, I really want to have a program or a framework, if you will, or a system that I can sell to the same people or different people over and over again, and then they can get the results with my instruction. I just felt like I was better at coaching somebody than doing it, because I'm I can coach you, but I'm not passionate enough about your business or your thing to get the result for you. I just don't really care that much to be able to do. It's hard to do it for that many people over and over and over again. So I was just struggling. And then last year when the pandemic happened, I don't know if it was my idea or someone else's idea, but I was just basically, it led me into why not use this time to connect with more people. Because before, we're also busy. Nobody was on Zoom. Anytime you message someone, it's I'm busy. I don't have time to meet up. But we're all at home. It's all right, we have time now. So this guy was you should check out Dan Henry, which is an awesome entrepreneur. He's a coach. And that led me into, the whole coaching thing, how to actually be a coach. And before he was on my podcast, before that episode, I had a lot of people on there like yourself that are older than me, right? They're not younger than me. They're not exactly my same age, but they're hey, I have more experience than you.
Right.
And this is what I would do. If I could go back and be your age, or what's helped me get to where I'm at. And everyone kept saying a coach or a mentor or someone that helped them along the way. And I kept posting content about that and saying it. And I'm all right, it's time for me to put my money where my mouth is. And so I invested in Dan, and he helped me become a coach. And that's what we've been doing ever since. That was about a year ago in May 2020.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that you said that, the pandemic helped you with that, because I think so many people, I look back to doing a podcast. If you were doing a podcast 2 years ago before coronavirus, you had to go and have all your equipment. You had to go and find people, had to go places to meet up and record it. But now with over the past year, there's been so much opportunity for people to open up to having conversation with people from all over, because like you said, people are home, or they're getting used to being on Zooms or watching things. So it has kind of opened up some different areas for other people to kind of try things and go after it. And I think that's really a great point that you said about mentors or coaches, because a lot of times you have ideas and you don't really know, I think one of the things you talk about is the blueprint. It's really important to have the right blueprint, because otherwise you can really spin your wheels. And I think one of the things that a lot of people struggle with, and I think you wrote about this, is that we'll invest in technology or things, but we won't invest in ourselves. So can you talk about how maybe it helps people to kind of realize that sometimes putting that money into coaching, or it's like a college degree, but in a quicker thing that can you actually be your own thing. So talk about why you think it's important for people to take that step for themselves.
Yeah, I think two things. Like one thing I posted not too long ago was I think people sometimes are like, it's too much money, but it's like, think about how much money people pay for just flowers at a wedding. Like they're like, this is like one day, no one's really even looking at them. Like you're kind of looking at them, but it's not that much of an impact in your overall life, right?
Right.
And we're talking like thousands of dollars, right? But the thing that made me really think of like to start taking having a coach seriously is someone who was like, whenever you're in a forest, like if you go like deep into a forest, like there's two options you have. One is like you can just keep trying to find your way out, which is like almost impossible, right? You're going to end up starving, lost, scared, killed by an animal, whatever, right? Or if you know someone that knows their way out and can just say, hey, Kristen, hey, Dee, this is the perfect way to go. Like, just follow me. I have all the gear. I have all the lighting. Like, it's guaranteed I'm going to get you out of there. It's like, why would you not have that person help you? And I think we've kind of got to the point as entrepreneurs and maybe as people in general where people, and you mentioned this before, people want to share their success, but they don't like to share how they got there. And so now the people, whenever you're in this space, you know that I know all these people I know now that are making all this money, like they have like 10 different coaches that are like, they're all doing the same thing because they all have the same coach and it's the same blueprint. But to people that are stuck at like a 9-to-5 job, they're like, oh, this person figured it out on their own. They just know how to do this stuff. And so now for you to pay someone, you feel like less than. It's like, oh, why am I going to pay someone when all these other people figured it out? Like, I must not be smart enough. And so now you just try to like work harder on being smarter. And instead, it's like everyone has some type of coach, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, like Warren Buffett, like whoever it is. And so it just makes your life so much easier. Now, the thing is like, that doesn't mean like every coach is good. Like just like every school or every anything, like you still got to do your research, but it just doesn't really make sense to try to do like, you can make money back if you lose it. I'm like, you're going to make that money back.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that time back, that 2 or 3 years that you try to figure something. Like if I wanted to like make an awesome podcast, like video for my intro, why would I try to do it myself when I could just literally ask you, like, how did you do it? Did you do it yourself? Did you hire someone? What did they do? Like, I could probably figure that out in like 5 minutes, right. Or I could go waste like months and like it would look crappy at first. And then I'm trying to, it's just like, why do that? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so it's like it's taking the initial investment, but finding someone that can kind of help you move it along quicker, or help you with the other skills that maybe you don't have. Not everybody has all those skill sets together. And I think that's an important point that I think a lot of people don't realize, how many people do really have coaches or people that have mentored them through the process. I think people just like to see the highlight reel. And one of the things I love about a lot of the content that you share on your Instagram and your YouTube channel is you share the nooks and crannies with everybody. You share the good and the bad, like, you know, like the stressful, the highs and the lows of being an entrepreneur. I love a lot of people always want to show the Lambo or the floss or all the fancy stuff, but they don't want to show you the days that you're really, you know, working hard at it, or you have the days that you're frustrated, or maybe the business took a step back when it's kind of going well. And why do you think, why is it so easy for you to show the good and the bad? Because so many people, do you think it's, you don't have an ego, or do you think that you really enjoy the process and you want people to get it?
That's a good question. For me, I think it's because I was there before. And I remember, like, for me, like Ty Lopez was like that person. So Gary Vee is really good, but you don't really see like his personal side, right? So he's very good at like advice and like helping you in mindset. Ty Lopez to me was like, he was showing like behind the scenes. And that was like the first time I ever saw that. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like, you really get to see. And I was like, that actually helps me. And so I just started testing it on my own social media. And the times where I was like just super positive, like some people are like, oh, this is awesome. But the times where I was like, this is what I'm struggling with and this is how I'm dealing with it, like so many people will reach out to you, whether that's online or in person. And to me, like that's the point. It's like, how do we help each other like grow? And I feel like as you like it just, and for yourself, it's like, it gives you that motivation. It's like, I'm going to share like where I'm at now. Then I can look back on it later and see where I came from. Yeah. And it's like, also like, you're just putting that out into the world of like, I'm here, but this is where I want to go. And I think it holds you like accountable, because like, you don't want to keep posting that stuff over and over again. Like, I'm struggling. So it's like, I want to show like the progression, but I don't know. I just feel like it's like, I know what it does to like help other people. And so I just like, that to me is what matters the most.
So Dee, like, how did you get comfortable? Like a lot of times you just turn on your camera and you start talking, like where you're taking your walks. You love your walks. You love to like walk everywhere, right? And I love the way that you just kind of share what's going on. And when you used to be in Orlando before the move, I used to love some of your videos, and you met some cool people. Didn't you meet Shorty? What was the name of that lady that you used to talk
Yeah,
to?
that's her name. That's her,
Yeah.
that's her name. She yeah, I don't know. I just I feel like I have an ego, but I don't. Like, just within me, I'm like, I want to be like the best, and I'm not like one of these persons or people where it's like, oh, I'm not good at stuff. Like, I'll be like, I know I'm like one of the best at this or that, but when I'm like with other people, it's like I don't treat them like I'm better than them. Like, even in Mexico, I know a lot of people. Like, I know the janitors that like clean our place here. I know like the people on the streets that sell stuff. Like in Orlando, I knew a lot of the homeless people. I'm always just treat people as people. Like, I feel like I can see like inside of them, like you have this person in you that could be great, but like you just don't know how to get there.
Right.
And so like if I can help someone like unlock that, like that's like my favorite thing. I'm like, you could be better than me, but you just don't know. There's something you don't know, or there's a mindset shift that you need to have. And so for me, that's how I just treat everyone that I meet. I'm like, bro, if I just want to help you go like a little bit farther, and then a little bit farther, and like at the like within our relationship, I want you to be like, this guy always like helped me elevate. Like, that was like how our relationship was.
I love that. I think that's such an important thing. I think you actually did a post about that too. I think your wife shared something that was about why can we see the potential in a house or a song or a business, but we can't see the potential in people. And I think that's such an important message, because we just take, I mean, people are really the most important things. It's not possessions, because, you know, possessions come and go, but we are so careless with the way we teach each other, or the way that we won't even like try to understand where somebody else is coming from. And I think that's one of the strongest things that I love about you, is that I think you and I both share that same love for wanting to know a person's backstory, or we want people to succeed. And I think I think you and I both feel the same way about haters. Like, you know, I'm so sick of all the haters out there. It's like, why are you such a hater? Why are you so competitive? Why can't you cheer for somebody else just because they're doing something similar? You know, what is it that you don't like about haters?
I think I kind of have a different perspective. Like, I don't know if I've just been lucky or it's like the energy I have, but I see a lot of people are like, oh, so-and-so's hating on me, or people are trying to stop me. I don't actually really get a lot of that, but I think it's just because the way like I interact with people. It's like, like, you just sound like an idiot, like trying to hate on something I'm doing. Cause like, I'm never flashy about it. I'm like literally trying to help people. So it's like, what are you going to say? So I really don't. The only time I ever really get that is like on the ads that I run, like the Facebook ads for my business. Mm-hmm. But one thing I've learned to do, and my wife always laughs at me, is like, I just always ask people questions. So like, someone literally was like, they told me, they're like, I don't know what it is about you, but I don't know you, but I just don't like you already. Like, they commented that to me, and I was like, and like where most people would be mad, I just said, I wonder why you feel like that. And I was like, if you ever change your mind, like, let me know, we'll go get something to eat. And then like later that guy messaged me and he's like, actually, you know, you're right. That was like a rude comment. Like, I can tell you're a cool guy. So I'm always just chill. I'm like, there's got to be something wrong with someone for, like Gary Vee always says, for you to have that negative, excuse me, energy. So I always just try to lead with a question. If someone's like, yo, what you just did was stupid, I'm always like, what makes you think that? Like, normally the hate goes away pretty quickly. So I don't know. I don't really see that too much. I think the biggest hate, and I don't know if I would call it hate, but I think it would be from like family, where they're not necessarily hating on you, but it's like, Christian, why do you want to spend so much time on this podcast? And why are you trying to spend time? You could be working doing this. Or D, why do you want to move to Mexico? And like, that's the thing that bothers me the most, because like those are the people you're supposed to count on. Right. And instead of them being there for you, I'd rather them just say nothing. But instead of not being there for you, instead of them being there for you, instead of them not saying nothing, they just decide to say negative things. And that can like hurt me worse than like a hater, because you're like, you start to think like, dang, am I really crazy? Because this person claims they love me, but now they're like, oh, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. That's the thing I worry about the most.
That's a great point, Dee, because I think that I was saying that to somebody the other day. I'm like, it's so funny how like strangers are over there like, yay, you can do it. And they're like, your own people, like, that's crazy. You shouldn't do that. Right. You're just, what? And I think that's a really good point. I'm like, I think it's so funny how also, like, I don't know what it is about the way that people are wired, because we'll sit there and cheer on a celebrity or somebody else that they're going to become, you know, doing their own business, or they opened up a makeup industry. Like if somebody famous opens up makeup, they're like, oh, I'm going to go buy her a lipstick, right? But they didn't say, oh, that's crazy, there's already 5,000 lipstick companies out there. But if you said, I'm going to open a lipstick company, they're like, oh my God, that's a really difficult market to get into. There's so many others doing that. So I think that's a really point. And I think that's why people probably don't hate on you that much, because you do come from a place of like a cool attitude that's just like, well, why? And I love that you said that you always ask somebody, well, why do you think that? Because I think that's one of the biggest problems in society, that we don't ask people why they think that. You know, you open up the dialogue. And that's one of my favorite things about always having a conversation with you, is that I just love the way you kind of approach uncomfortable topics, or just different mindset and making things happen. So I want to get into a little something about you. So you've been doing the coaching. 2020 was an interesting year. You became a little bit obsessed with traveling, and you and your wife just picked up the family and you just moved to Mexico. Talk a little bit about what made you want to do that. And after you talk about that, then I want to get into like what are some of the things you've learned.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. So the first thing, like when 2020, for like everyone, it was like hard, like financially, unless you were already like really, really crushing it, right? Like people that were even killing it's like, dang, my job's not as secure as I was, or I had a business, and if it's in person, like I can't. So it was the same thing for us. And so I just felt like when I was on my walk one day, that God was like, you need to have like you need to come up with a trying to think of the right word, but like a goal that's big enough to keep you motivated through this, or you're going to give up. And so I just heard like in my head, like take a trip, like, cause that's what excites me. So I went home and I told my wife about it. I was like, we need to plan like a big trip. I don't know how we're going to get there, but it can't just be a trip. It has to be like icing on the top. So we're going to plan like a trip, and we were going to go first class there and back. And like, that is going to push us to stay like motivated. That was in like May or something like that. I can't remember the exact date, but we were like, in November, we're going to do it. So it's like months, right? So as the time started growing closer, we're like watching travel vlogs, trying to stay like motivated and stuff. And around that, I forget when it was, but around the summer or something, Barbados, I think it was Barbados. They had opened up a visa for remote workers. So they're like, hey, if you're going to work remotely, you can move here for a year. Like they extended the visa. So we were like, oh, let's do that. So then we started watching more videos, and we started learning more about like what a digital nomad is. And it's, you know, how people live location independent, and they'll just move from place to place to place. So we were like, why lock ourselves into one location when we can go to multiple places? And so then we wrote that on the board. We're like, 2021, like as soon as our lease is up here, like we're just going to travel. And then things started getting worse, and more places started closing up. So Mexico was like one of the only places that was like really left, and it's close. We're in Florida. And so my wife was kind of like, I don't know if I really want to go there. Like, let's just put it off. And I was like, if we put it off, who knows what could happen? Like all the countries could close down. It could end up being a year later, 2 years later. And then you're 50, 60 years old, and you're like, dang, I never did that thing. So I was like, I'm going. Like, I'm going to buy the place. I'm going to buy the tickets, and then we're just going to go. And so that's what we did. Like, we just figured it out every step of the way. And we came here in February. It's now April, almost May. So we've been here almost 3 months now.
That's amazing, Dee. I love how you just said that you put it on the board. I think it's so cool. First of all, I think it's great that your wife is so like you guys are on the same page, and you really support each other's dreams and really work collaboratively. So I think it's so important in a relationship. But I just love you because I know we're going to do it, because if we don't do it, and this is why so many people don't get things done, because they say, I'm going to do it. I know that you're so good at pushing people to like, start now. Why not? Why not?
Just do it.
And I'm always like, yes, Dee, you're so right. So I love that. So you guys been
it's kind of like, sometimes I'm like, I have to like almost remind people, like, I'm glad I inspired you, but like, if you fail, don't be so mad at me. Cause like people take really crazy risks. I feel like I went to, so I went down here and I got like a massage at this place. Right. Okay. So we, in Mexico, we live close to this place, this street called Fifth. It's Fifth Avenue. Mm-hmm. It's basically like the strip here. So it's kind of like, I've never been to Las Vegas, but I can imagine there's like a street where you have like everything. Right. That's how it is here. Like all the restaurants, all the fancy restaurants, all the shops, like all the stores, everything. And I have a whole bunch of people like a whole bunch of massage places, like everything. Right. So I had got I went to go get a massage. Everyone here obviously speaks Spanish mostly. So the lady was like, would you prefer to have someone that speaks English? She spoke really good English. So I was like, oh, wow. So she was like, oh, I'll take care of you. So I was like, all right, cool. So it made it like easier for me to communicate. From there, we just like ended up like connecting on like social media, like, oh, do you have social media? Like, where are you from? Blah, 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 blah. So then I was telling her like, oh, you should post like more of your like, she was like, I want to start like my own massage business, but it's like kind of difficult, like down here, like to know where to start. And I was like, oh, you should just use like social media, right? So after that, I was like, hey, I'm gonna schedule like another like massage with you like in a week or two, since like you can speak English, is easier. So by the time that next like appointment came, like she quit her job and like is only doing like her business now. She messaged me, she's like, I'm better than this. Like I have bigger things coming on. Like you talk to me, like I'm ready to. I'm like, oh man, what am I getting like people into? But it's just interesting that it's like you can inspire people all around the world to do stuff like that. I told my wife, I was like, yo, can you believe like I literally just talked to this massage lady here in Mexico, and like now she's like full-time like entrepreneur, like quit her job, has like 4 or 5 like employees now and everything. I was like, that's
Shut
just crazy.
Up. Gee, that's awesome. But you know what? I think that there's some people that just have it in them, and I think there's certain people that just don't, like you said back in the beginning, no, they don't have the blueprint. Like some people just have it in them, and they just need that, either that push, or they just need to kind of like have the right coach or book or something that kind of gets them going, and then they'll just go with it. Because if you're a hustler and you're willing to do the work, you can make it work if you have the right things in place. That's so cool. I absolutely.
I think most people just don't have I think usually people just aren't used to someone encouraging them in that type of way.
Yeah.
Especially when they're like, this person really doesn't even know me. So like, dang, like they're really just telling me the truth. And so I think whenever I'm telling people that, they're like, oh yeah, like I have been thinking that. Like, you're right. Like, why don't I do it?
Yeah, why don't I just go for it? Yeah, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't go well, you go back and get a job. Whoop-de-doo. I think that's one of the things that you were talking about. A lot of people, like, think that goes back to something that you wrote about why some people are broke or don't get certain places, because there's action, excuses, and a blueprint, right? So that you think those are 3 main things that a lot of people, if they really want to do something, or they have an idea in them, you think they need those 3 things to actually, they work well together. Is that why you wrote that one?
Yeah, I forget why I had posted that, but it's just like, usually I'll post stuff just off of like either conversations I've had with people or like DMs. But I think, yeah, like a lot of people, like they have excuses, and it's like really, when you break it down, it's really like dumb. It's like, what, like, for example, people will be like, I'm not, like where you're sitting right now. I don't know, like if everyone, maybe if they're listening like on the audio, they can't see it, but like your couch that's behind you. Like there's certain people that are going to be like, I'm not going to chase my dream because I might lose that couch. And then where am I going to sit when I'm watching football on Sunday? I'll be uncomfortable. And it's like, really? That's what you're worried about? So I think like we have like these dumb excuses, and it's like, that's what you're really worried about. Like there's people starving in countries, but we don't want to lose our Tesla or a fancy car or have to wear like 10 outfits, you know, for months. Like we got to have like all these different ones and all these different shoes, and we got to be able to eat out every day. And it's like, all those things aren't really that important. They shouldn't hold you back from like achieving your goals. And then I think once people kind of get over the excuses, like they just don't take action. It's like, okay, I'm ready, but okay, I need to, for example, work out, but I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. I'm going to go to the gym the next day. And it's like, you know that that's what you want to do, and you're kind of over the excuses, but you're not taking like the action. And then even when people do take action, it's like, for, let's say, for example, again, like working out, it's like, oh, I'm going to just run on the treadmill for 30 minutes for like 4 days a week. And it's like, how do you know that that's going to get you results? Like you're literally just making up something.
You're right.
And so it's like, now you're going to be frustrated when you've been doing this over and over again and you're not getting results, versus you could have just, again, hired a coach and they're like, you need to eat this, and these are the exact workouts you need to do. Do that on Monday, do it on Wednesday, do it on Friday, walk this amount of steps, and now you start to get the results. So I think getting rid of the excuses, taking the action, but then having a blueprint so you know like what you're taking action on is actually going to get you where you're trying to go.
I think that's such a great point, because I think the action, right? You know, these days it's really clicking and things go really well, and then you kind of hit like a pothole or a bump, and you get a flat tire, and then you're like, ah, damn. And then you just like, if you don't really want to get out and change that tire, you're just gonna be like, you know what, this is just a lot of work. I'm just gonna leave it here and let somebody tow it. So I think that's such a great point, because it's hard. You know, it's hard when you're building your thing. You're gonna have those days that you just don't feel motivated, or things kind of like take a step back. And I think, what do you think some lessons you've learned? Because I know building your own thing that you probably had the good days and the bad days. How do you kind of keep yourself so motivated and keep such a good attitude on the days that maybe have a bump in the road?
So for me, that's where I'm at right now. Like, before we moved to Mexico, we started basically at 0, started scaling it up. We're doing like 5,000 a month, 10. Then we got in between 10 and 15. Then we got in between like 20 and 30. And then in December, I think we had over like a $30,000 a month. Wow. So we're like, all right, cool. We're about to move. Like, let's hire a team. We had like 5 of us. Let's make some changes. Made some changes, moved to Mexico. It's fun. Like, we have all this money and like the savings. We're having fun. We're going to the beach. We're eating all this food, having fun. And like the sales went down, like to where it was like, months without like any sales. Like we had to let like team members go. So it's like, how do you deal with that? And I think sometimes people make it seem like you're supposed to do good every single month. And my friend put it into really good perspective, because like sometimes I even struggle with that, where it's like, man, I'm really frustrated, because I was like, not just that I want it to work out, but it's like when you have other people that are on your team, it's like, dang, I had like these high expectations for them. I don't feel like I let them down. But right. My friend was just like, bro, what's the alternative? He's like, you're going to quit doing what you would quit doing what you're doing to go do something else that you hate doing, that's not going to give you any benefit.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, everything is hard, but I think you just have to surround yourself by people that are going to like uplift you. And then I did a video, I think on this, you commented, I think it was like yesterday, but it's like sometimes we're too focused on like the end goal. So it's like, oh, I'm not at 20K a month, or I'm not away from my job, but it's like, work on what you're doing like every day. Like, there was a day where we had booked like today, I had like 9 calls of potential clients, but because, we haven't got that money yet, it can feel like, oh, it's slow, but it's like, but you got to do the steps, and those steps build up. And right. So I think sometimes you just have to take, actually this lady, I was talking to this lady at this restaurant the other day, and she does like Muay Thai. And she was like, what helped her with martial arts is she was like, when I first started, I would just get beat up really easily. And she's like, what I had to realize is sometimes when someone grabs you or tries to do a move, you have to think about it for a second and realize, oh, I know this move. I've been in it before. I know how to get out of it. And she's like, the same thing is like life and being an entrepreneur. When you're in a difficult situation, you have to be like, oh, like I've been here before. Like, take a step back. Like, is it really as bad as you thought it was? Are there other good things that are going on? Like, what's the worst case scenario that could happen? What's the next step that you need to take? And then all you focus on is that next step. You don't focus on like the results or what could happen if you fail. You just focus on like the next step. I was reading this book, and the guy was talking about how like, how like you attract like whatever you think about.
Yes, like, yeah, because I'm a big believer of that, because a lot of times when you put things out into the universe, it will come back.
Yeah. So he was like, what happens is people, when you get desperate, you start thinking about like what will happen if you don't succeed. So you're like, oh man, if I don't succeed, I'm gonna lose my house, or I'm gonna lose my marriage, I'm gonna lose. And he's like, subconsciously you're thinking about what you don't want so much that's what happens. So he's like, instead you have to think about what you need to do to get what you want, and those things will happen. So it's really like a lot of mindset stuff. I mean, for me, I walk a lot. So that's when I'm like, okay, I got to get back to listening to audiobooks, right? Or even now I'm like, all right, I got to like pray in the morning. I got to like read the Bible in the morning. I got to like pray, and I got to like really focus on my mindset and make sure I'm staying positive, and I'm educating myself on what I want to do. But I think that's what I want to show people on my social media. It's like, it's not easy. It's not always like, there's some days where you're like frustrated, you want to break something, but it's like, you got to keep going. Yeah.
No, I think that's so important, because like, I love that Muay Thai story, because I really think that's what's so important for so many people to realize. When the more you have tough situations, like, we want everything to be easy. Like, we're always constantly in society, always trying to like take away the hard, make it easy, make it nice, that is not life. And that is why I think people do struggle so much, because we're trying to make it seem so easy or everything nice. And like, no, that's the complete opposite. So you're not going to have that tenacity or that drive to keep pushing through it. And like, and it's so true, because once you hit it once, you're like, oh, I know this. You know what I mean? So like when you have a bump in the road and it happens once, you're like, I know how to get out of this. And that, I think that's such a great message for so many people to take with them, because especially over this past year has really tested so many people, you know, financially, emotionally, just mentally. And I think that, you know, that's one of the reasons I like to have cool conversations on this show and try to, you know, teach people different walks of life or different serious situations and how to kind of, you know, master them for yourself, because nothing's going to change if you don't change it for you. So, you know, you got to kind of get in there and say, all right, well, I'm going to go after this, and I'm going to set this goal, or I'm going to like manifest this thing to come to me. And I think that is so true. When you think negatively, you're going to get negative things. So when you think, oh, well, if this doesn't do well, this is going to happen. Well, then that's what's going to probably wind up happening. So I think the mindset is such a huge piece. And I think that's great that you make that connection for people. One thing I want to ask you, Dee, like, have you changed? Like, what has changed you since you've been in Mexico for the past 3 months? You know, do you have like has it made you think differently, or have you simplified? Like talking about getting, you know, simplifying your clothes. Like, did you guys bring a lot less stuff down there? So you don't seem like a flashy person anyhow, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, for me personally, like that was like the funnest thing for me. It was like I got rid of like a lot of stuff. Like I have like in my closet, like maybe like I don't even know if I have 10 things like total. Like if outside like underwear and socks, obviously, right? But yeah, like if you count like everything that's hanging up, like it's not a lot of stuff. And at first you feel like, oh, I'm gonna need all of this. And like in our minds, we're like, well, what if someone invites me to like a fancy ballroom dinner and I don't have it? It's like, bro, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's like, what if I need to have like 3 pair of heels, because it's like, you don't need all that. And in America, like we get tricked into like having all this stuff. And not that there's anything wrong with the stuff, but having that stuff is what slows us down from reaching our goals, because we're scared to lose that stuff. Right. So now that relieves me. I'm like, even if someone as long as someone doesn't take my laptop, if someone stole my stuff, I'm like, you didn't take anything. Like there's not anything to really take, you know?
Right. So
we simplified that. And then I think really just living here, it's kind of like, I think America is amazing for like a springboard, right? Like you can start a business and it's easy for you to get it like off the ground, and there's a lot of opportunities. But as far as like once you're making money and you know what you're doing, like we try to make other places look like they're so dangerous and so like, oh, why would you go there? Why would you live there? And it's like, we have mass shootings like almost every single day, or at least every single month in America. That is like very, very dangerous. And then you come here and it's like, really, people are so nice. Like everything is like a third of the cost. And it really just changed my mind to how like people live. Like they're more focused on like their well-being. Like, oh, I'm going to eat right. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to work on my mindset. I'm going to invest in myself. And the cool thing about being here is like almost everyone that you meet thinks outside of the box, because they wouldn't be here if they didn't. Because like you're living in a different country during a pandemic.
Right.
Versus like when you're at home, you have to like filter out people. And it's like almost everyone is negative. Don't do this, don't do that. But here, everyone's on the same page. Like, oh man, I left my house. Like my family doesn't get it. I do this business. And another thing that changed my mind too is like almost everybody that I've talked to that works here, all the Mexicans that I've talked to, like they love their job. It's like so strange. It's like you go to a restaurant, it's like, how do you like it? And like, I love it. Not like I like it. Oh, it's cool. It's like, I love it. And it's like they work 6 days a week, like all day. And I asked this guy the other day, I was like, how much do you guys like typically make here? And he said, I think he said in between 200 and 300 pesos, right? So 100 pesos is $5. So we're talking like $10 like for his wage, right? A day. And then he said with tips, he might make in between 300 and 500 pesos. So we're talking about like, you know, maybe $20, $30 like a day. And so like, that's what they live on. And then sometimes us as entrepreneurs, we're like, oh man, I'm so stressed because I'm gonna have to give my Apple Watch away if I can't, you know? And it's like, I had to start putting that into perspective, where it's like, even on my worst day, like I'm doing way better than a lot of people here.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's just, it's really, and so that's where I think another thing that's helped me is even when I'm not feeling good, and even when everything is not working for us, I'm still like, I have to have a heart of giving. Like, we so it's kind of messed up, but so that lady that I was telling you about that like started her own like massage company now and like is doing her own thing. She invited me and my wife to like go over there. She's like, oh, like you guys can do like a couples massage. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I don't know if people know, but like I'm about like 6'2", like 200 and some pounds, right? So they have us each on these like different tables. I usually don't fit on these tables here anyways. Like like my ankles don't even fit, right? Like lengthwise, and then like widthwise, I don't really fit on there either.
All right.
So afterwards, they're like, okay, you guys can get dressed, and then like they actually provided us with the transportation to get there too. So I go ahead and get like dressed, and then we'll take you guys. So I normally do at a massage place, I just sat on the table to like put some of my stuff on, and it just broke. It just like, and I just stood up, and the lady, like, they speak Spanish primarily, so they come in like, I no, like they're so like, it was so crazy because like no one could talk to each other, but everyone's just like, oh. So my wife speaks Spanish, so they were like talking, and the lady was basically like, oh, this is my friend's table and it's very old. Like, I should have told you not to sit on it, but it is like very fragile, and I should have had you on the other one that's like bigger. So I was talking to her today, and she's like, we like, unfortunately, now that happened, like we can't do any more like couple massages or massages during the pandemic because we don't have a table. So today I just bought her a table.
Oh, that's
and I was like, our business isn't doing as good as it is, but I was like, I was like, but it was only like $100 and some. So I was like, I'm stressing about this, but yet they don't even have enough money to get a table. And there's like 5 or 6 of like all their families.
Right.
And it's like, that's not that much money.
Right.
So that's why I was like, just, I think whenever you're like not doing good, like have a heart of like giving, like normally that's going to make you feel better. And if nothing else, like those people are going to remember it and they'll help you like eventually. So that's why I'm like, we got to keep helping people like through this time.
That's a great story, because I think that's so important, because now here you are, you're like, okay, it's $100. Like, it's not going to make or break my, if my business isn't really booming this month, that $100 isn't going to like, kill it. And I do believe that sometimes when you give, that's when sometimes more comes back to you. Like, I just think that a lot of people have to make that mental switch sometimes. You don't think so, but you'd be surprised who you're going to meet down the line, or sometimes how that will ripple back. So I love that. I think it's always good to kind of be a big person and do something good for people. I love that. One other thing I thought I want to ask you about too, Dee, is you were talking about like the 4-hour work week. I know that you read a lot, and I know that you look to a lot of other people to pick up tips along the way. And you were talking about why everyone's unhappy, and it's back to like what you were saying about the model of following the model of what everybody else is doing. So did that book help you a lot with certain things? Do you think it's a good book for people to read that are trying to get their business started or trying to get out on their own?
Yeah, that book is I don't think you can read that and do it. I want to preface it and say I don't think you can read that book and do everything by yourself, because he tells you what to do but not always how to do it. But it gives you a lot of like
a mind.
It gives you a lot of like clarity. For example, if somebody's like, hey, in order to have a very successful marriage, you need to be going to, let's say, therapy like once every month. Like, they didn't tell you what to do in the therapy or how to find the therapist, but now like, okay, this is what I need to do.
Okay.
So that's how this book is. Like, he's like, this is a lot of the stuff actually it is how to. He's like, here's how to find like a virtual assistant. Here's how to grow your business. This is the type of business you should create. Here's how to find like cheap flights. Like, a lot of it is how to, but the reason why I said that, I think, is for like the business part. Like, don't just read that book and be like, okay, I'm going to make my own business that's like doing all this money. I wouldn't advise that. I think you couple that book with a coach that can teach you business, and that right there alone will really teach you how to travel. Like, there's a lot of good, valuable information in there, and it makes you think about life differently, about like what is life about? Like, what is the, like, there's a story in there, and he talks about, not to make it long, but basically there's this guy, I think actually he's a Mexican guy, but he's basically just, he's fishing, and this white guy walks up to him and he's like, hey, like, what are you doing or whatever? And he's like, oh, I'm just like fishing. And he's like, oh, cool. Like, what do you do after that? And he's like, oh, I just go take like a nap and like hang out with my family. And he's like, oh, well, if you like built a company around this, you could go and you could like sell this for more money rather than just like doing it for like yourself and your friends. He's like, okay, cool. Like, what would I do after I do that? And he's like, oh, after that, then you build like a bigger company and you get more locations, and the more locations you have, the more money you would have. And he's like, okay, what do I do after that? And he's like, well, once your company gets so big, you could sell it and you would have millions of dollars. And he's like, okay, what do I do after that? And he's like, well, then you could take a nap and you can hang out with your family. And he's like, that's where I'm already at. And so it's like, that's how people are. It's like, we're working so hard to do the things that we could do without working that hard. And that's what the book shows you. It's like, why burn yourself out until you're 60, 70, 80 years old to take one vacation that you could learn how to take now and enjoy life now. Wow. And so it really changes it changed my mindset and my perspective on life and what to appreciate and how to go about achieving those things.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because, that's one of the things I think is such a trick for people sometimes. It's like we give this imagery that these are the things you're supposed to do, or this is what's supposed to make you successful, or this house is, owning this or owning that is going to make you like something. But it's like, I feel like sometimes it's actually a trap, because then when you have to do all those things, then you have to make enough money to make those things. And I'm not saying that money's not good and fancy cars and fancy stuff isn't good. I'm like saying if that's what you really want. But if you can find some happiness with being a little bit less, right, then you're only going to be ahead of and I feel like you're a little bit ahead of the game sometimes, because I feel like, yes, it's great to have the money work for you. And it's great to have a lot of money coming in. But then I love that story because he already hung out with his family. And I think that's what so many people's thing that they're trying to do is spend time with the family. I think that's one of the things I think is so interesting about, you making that jump to be the digital nomad and to take open your own business, because it's coming from a place of just serving others and serving yourself, like serving your own family's needs and wants. And I think it's so great if more people can if you feel like you want to do that, then Dee is a great person to follow, because, you can learn a lot from him, and he's really good at sharing the information and kind of showing the journey, because entrepreneurship or coaching, it's not always glamorous. You have your good days and your bad days. And I think that's why I love that you show that. One thing I want to say as we get ending the show, one of the things I like to do with this show is that it's about kind of bringing people together and having conversations about different points of view, and the fact that we can also get along. And that's one of the things I love about you, is because whenever we talk, you have such a great way of just kind of making everything make so much more sense in a world that's so insane right now. And you shared on one of your posts one of the stories I love, which I've seen a lot of times this year because it really signifies what's been going on around us in a society. And it's the story of the two ants, the red and the black ants, and how they can do fine when they're in a jar. But then once you shake it up and you release them back out, they're just going to attack each other until they kill each other. And I was just going to ask, with everything going on in the world, how do you arise above getting into all the negativity and getting people to pull you into it? What do you use for your mantra or your lifestyle? How to keep yourself happy and focus on what matters to you?
I think it goes back to what I said before, which is, and I think this will be an important part, where I literally, and people make fun of me about this here, but I literally just always ask people what do you mean? Or what makes you say that? Or what do you mean? And I think what people have to realize is some people are right, but they're wrong. And what I mean by that is I tell people, I tell some of my Black friends, I'm like, if someone's racist, that doesn't necessarily make them wrong. And that's hard for people to comprehend. I'm like, it all depends on their mindset. So if you're a 5-year-old boy and you grow up in a city where there's no Black people at all, and one day you're waiting for your mom to come home and you're looking out the window and you see her, and there's a group of 10 Black guys come and they just murder her, that's gonna change your perspective, right? And so, not to say that you're right and not in thinking all Black people are like that, but you just need someone to explain to you that that's not the way that it is. Same with some people that don't like cops, they've had very bad experiences. And I think what we're doing is we're just trying to tell, oh, you're wrong, or this is why you should think about it, versus okay, you don't like police, why not? Why not? And let's have I'm not trying to be right, and I'm not trying to make you wrong. I'm trying to understand where you come from. And then you don't like Black people, why not? You don't like what, like, you don't believe in God. Why not? Like, I don't just try to like convince people like they should do this or that. I just try to understand what they're doing. And I think there's too many people on social media, like all they want to do is like prove people they're right or wrong. Like, oh, Trump is dumb. And it's like, if you ever say anything to them, it's like, they just start yelling. It's like, why are you so aggressive over these different topics? And so I'm just like really chill. I'm like, I'm not going to argue with you. I feel like for most people, I'm like, if you believe you're right, then why are you getting so pressed?
Right.
Like, you're right, they're wrong. Like, they should be mad. Like, I'm not going to be mad at you for being wrong. Like, that just doesn't make sense. So, and another thing I think that was cool, or I wouldn't say cool, but has been, I guess, relieving for us is like, we're not surrounded by that now. Like, I'm in a different country. So that's one thing. It's like, you don't really hear about that all the time. And I think, and me and you talk about this all the time, where some stuff is reality, but a lot of it is like the news is like pushing it on you to make all this division. And then when you step outside of it, it's like, bro, we're getting along. Like, we're actually getting along when there's not like people telling you that you shouldn't get along.
Correct.
Like, we're coexisting. There's no problems. Like, everything is fine. And like, you're not hearing about that. But then in America or on the news, like, everyone's battling and they make you like, this is the important topic that you have to talk about. And one thing I tell my wife is like, I hate that you're supposed to identify with people because of like your skin color. I'm like, why? That's the stupidest thing to me. Like, just because I'm Black, I have to care about all Black issues now, because I don't care about everybody that's 6'2". I don't care about everybody that weighs the same amount as me. I don't care about everybody that lives on the same street as me. I don't care about everybody that went to the same high school as me. So it's like, why is that something that I have? Like, we have no control over that. So it's like, now, you know what I mean? I just don't like that.
I think you said something like that in one of our past conversations. I think you used a book as the example, because like, just because you look like that on the outside, there's like inside the book, there's so much more to you. And I think that's an important point, because I think what we've got into as a society is that we say that everybody has to be like into a one box, and like, you know, just to say that women all have to feel the same way about certain things just because they're women or just because of what you look like. I think that really takes away from the fact that we are all still individuals with different life experiences and different wants or thoughts or feelings. So I love that. I think that's such a great point, Dee. And I think if anybody can take away from what him and I were just saying, I think it's important to understand that why. You can ask a question, maybe start a dialogue, because maybe you realize you have a lot more in common with each other than you actually realize by assuming that the person thinks the same way as you or thinks differently from you, you know, because that's one of the greatest things about the conversations that I have. And one of the reasons I always love chatting with you is because we always have some really cool conversations talking about different things that come up. So I appreciate you sharing your thoughts and feelings with us today.
No, I appreciate you having me on. It's always so dope to just like connect and see what you're doing. It's crazy. I literally messaged someone the other day because Facebook memories reminded me like of the podcast episode we did like last year. And so like, it's like all these people last year that I never knew that we just ended up randomly connecting. And I'm like, dang, it's so crazy to see like, it's the thing that I think is cool is like I've connected and like you have connected, and just people in general. Like, there's like two realities. It feels like you have a group of friends that are like, yeah, I know all this crazy stuff is happening in the world, but like, this is what I'm doing. And I am doing what I want to do in my world. I'm doing my podcast. I'm doing my business. I'm doing this. And you have everyone else that's like, the world is so terrible. And like, they're not doing anything about it.
I know.
So interesting to see, like, it's like, how are both of those at the same time? It's crazy.
I know. And I really think that sometimes that's why I like focusing on the people that are, I think I like to focus on the people that the actors and the doers that are doing the things, because, you know, they're kind of more that they're trying to do something about it. I'm always like, listen, I'm not going to say the ugly doesn't exist, but, you know, it's up to us to make something change of it. So you change it by having conversations. You change it by opening your mind to talking to different people. You change it by actually getting off your ass and doing something about it. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's a lot of people that like to be keyboard warriors, having a lot of fights all day long. But then it was like, well, where'd you go yesterday? Well, I didn't really do anything, but I spent a lot of time fighting with people. Well, congratulations. You know what I mean? You just contributed to the problem instead of really finding a solution. So that's a great point. I know it's really weird how it can be so different depending. Yeah. Well, Dee, I know you're super busy, and I know you're out there doing your thing. I want to thank you for joining us today, and continued success. And I don't know if I book a trip, I'll find out where you are. Maybe I'll come take a trip wherever you're at.
We should definitely do that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I need to get a getaway. Hey, wait, one more question. What part of Mexico were you in?
Playa del Carmen.
Playa del Carmen.
Like Cancun, kind of.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. All right. Well, Dee, thank you so much. And everybody, if you enjoyed the conversation, Dee's name's been on the bottom. You can follow him at Dee Greene. And, he's always somebody that's going to give you some good information or just lift your spirits and make you have a great day. Like I always like to say, thank you so much for joining us. And we will be back next Monday with another show. And have a great week, everybody. Cheers.
This episode of Chicken in a Bag is over. She's got to get back to being a mom, wife, bartender, therapist, comedian, real life stuff. But you can catch more episodes of Kristen being Kristen on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. Catch you next time.